our first panel, which is leveraging STARTALK into the community to create year-round opportunities. And I'm very happy to turn the presentation over to Greta Lundgaard, who will facilitate our panel. Greta?
Good morning, everyone. Again, as Betsy stated, and I just want to thank Betsy and Lynn for leading up to our panel. I'm Greta Lundgaard, and I'm pleased to facilitate this panel. Growing our summer programs to the extent that they influence academic year language programs is really our ultimate goal. Today, we'll hear from 3 program directors who have achieved that goal, all in slightly different ways and in slightly different settings. So welcome everyone, welcome all the panelists, and I'd like to invite you to please take a moment to introduce yourselves and your programs to our audience. Tim?
Yes, hello. My name is Timothy Allen, and I represent the Fauquier County STARTALK program. We are a rural county located about an hour away from Washington, D.C. It's relatively rural Virginia. We have been hosting STARTALK programs since 2009. We've always hosted Turkish and Arabic programs, and we are extremely proud to be here and share our success story, because not only have we gotten Arabic offered into our public school systems in Fauquier County, we also recently added Turkish as well. So we are a relatively small county, relatively rural, but yeah, there's a lot of interest in our county for foreign languages. And so yeah, that's.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Dr. Dyer.
Good morning, everybody. I'm coming to you from Oxford, Mississippi, and the University of Mississippi. We're located in North Mississippi. Some people call us Ole Miss. We have hosted a STARTALK program since the very beginning of the program. 2007 was our first year. We've officially hosted 14 programs, and in the past year, we also hosted our own program when the STARTALK funding was moved. We have had 1, 2, and 3 levels of Chinese in our STARTALK program over the years. I think at this point in time, we have effectively had several hundred students in our program, and I'll talk more later about the effect this has had on the university and on our Chinese flagship program. University of Mississippi is a place that we believe people come to study foreign languages, learn foreign languages effectively, and being part of STARTALK has been a part of that equation. Thank you, Greta.
Thank you. All right, Tammy, tell us about your program.
Hi, Tammy Kim here, based in Irvine, California with the Korean American Center. We have had a summer heritage program for Korean for middle school students since 2018. So this was our 3rd year. We selected middle school particularly because of the fact, and we saw it from the data earlier, it is probably the grade level that is in most need for having a program. And just a little bit about where we're at. Irvine, California is the 10th fastest growing city in the United States, the 1st fastest growing city in the state of California, and we're the most diverse and integrated cities within the United States. So for us, STARTALK was a perfect collaboration between what our city offers in our environment and this program. And we hope to expand and grow even further.
Oh, excellent. All right, so as our panelists talk today, they're going to address 2 specific questions. First of all, as they started their STARTALK programs, what was their aim and what was their goal? And then secondly, how has having this program impacted year-round language learning in your institution? So Timothy is going to start, and I'm going to listen, and I may ask you to draw out specific points as we go along. So go ahead and take your time, Tim, and tell us about your aims and how STARTALK has influenced or enabled you to move beyond the summer programs.
Okay. Well, first of all, when I speak, I'd like to say that I'm here representing Fauquier County as a whole. I've been with the Fauquier County program for 5 or 6 years now, but the story goes on, the story began many years before I entered Fauquier County. So Fauquier County began with an Arabic and Turkish program, and when the grant was first offered, there was a lot of interest in starting a language that had local community support because we knew that Fauquier County was starting from scratch. So we wanted to find languages that had community presence in the area. And it was well known that there was an emerging community of Arabic and Turkish speakers that were going to support the languages, and we could draw from them for teachers and guest speakers and just any kind of assistance. So those were kind of the practical reasons that we began with those two languages. Of course, there's also very good cultural and security reasons for choosing those languages as well. But we did kind of decide that we needed to focus on what we had in our community and what was going to be supported by the community. And it's been a very wise decision in our program because our program has continued to grow, and we have so much support from our school board, from the local communities, the heritage speakers, and everything. Of course, just like many teachers in the STARTALK program and many administrators, our vision was to get the languages offered into the school year. As much as we support the summer education and the opportunity for the students to begin, the main goal was to get it into the academic school year. And the way that we did that is kind of in increments. So Arabic was the first language that we got offered into the school system. The first year that we were able to have some of our academic our year-long students taking Arabic, it was through Virtual Virginia. I'm a big supporter of virtual education when it's possible. I'm actually working part-time with Fairfax County Public Schools, developing an Arabic program to be taught online for all the students that are in the county and don't have access to Arabic. So I think online can really fill a niche when there is a need. But the goal was eventually to not only rely on online education, but to also have actual, brick and mortar classes for the students. So we had 1 or 2 years where Arabic was offered online for all the students in the county. And then I believe we also, the same year, the county began implementing after-school programs for the elementary and middle school students that wanted to take an additional language called the Flex program, just to kind of get the interest going. And then after 2 or 3 years, when we saw that there was more interest on the ground, they finally approved to go ahead and let an Arabic teacher run a class. And ever since then, it's just been a growing success story. There's been more and more students taking Arabic. We offer it at, I think all of the schools now have an Arabic teacher present in the county. Very recently, we were able to add Turkish as well. And again, we kind of started with this incremental program. We started by having Turkish as a highly suggested optional language that the students who were taking a cybersecurity program would take. That way, the students, many of the students wanted to enter the cybersecurity program, and we really recommended they pair it with a language, and we recommended Turkish. That got some interest going, and I believe 2 years ago, we began offering Turkish in the schools. We started out with 6 or 7 students, and there's been an incremental increase every year. So from our perspective from Fauquier County has always been to plant the seeds, especially either through another program, such as the cybersecurity program, or to have after-school programs and STARTALK programs at the middle school level to kind of get the interest going. I just want to share 1 or 2 tips that I have from my experience also working with critical languages in other counties, because I've been working with Fairfax County Public Schools for many years, and I've been working and supporting their Arabic program as well. I have a couple of suggestions that I think are relevant to any school that wants to implement, that wants to get the target language into the school system. The first thing I would say is get the interest started in middle school. A lot of your high achieving students, the students interested in language, they're going to start taking probably Spanish or possibly French in middle school. And if they don't have another option available, they're going to just take those 2. And then they're going to continue with those when they're in high school. So I think it's extremely critical to get the interest started in middle school. And also not even the interest, just the awareness that the students know they have the option to take a language like Chinese or Arabic or Korean in high school if they want to. Another thing that I would say, which is kind of relevant to the staffing, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you have the local support available in your county. But another thing in my experience as a teacher is to try to get teachers that can also be certified in multiple subjects. And we can talk more about that later if we have time. I try to see things from different perspectives, and I know that a lot of times the administration is very hesitant to start a new language program because they're going to put all of their eggs in one basket, and the teacher might only be certified in the target language, it's a new program. There's not enough students. There's other critical needs in the school. if you can work with finding staff that is certified in other critical needs, such as special education, or ESOL is a great one for language teachers, or even any other subject area. This is something that can allow an administration to really consider offering a new language, because they feel that when they bring on the staff, they also are going to be able to support other needs in the school. So those are some tips that I have found have been really helpful in getting the programs going.
Okay, excellent. I just have one follow-up question, Tim. I heard you talk about the support that you enjoy at Fauquier County, and I'm sure I wondered, as I'm sure some of our audience wonders, how do you get that support going? Do you work with parents? Was it just like a legacy mindset in your district that values foreign language? Tell us a little bit about how to garner the support that you need in order to implement these new programs.
Yeah, I think a lot of the success that we have comes from opening up the communication with the community, and not just the parents, but also the school board. Every time we've had members from the school board come and visit the program, they've been extremely impressed, and then they go back and they spread the good word. We also have invited journalists from local newspapers to come by to publish. We have presence on Twitter, on social media. So I think constantly broadcasting and advertising the program, and like I said, involving the school board, going to, getting members that actually can make the decisions in your community, bringing them on board, that's all been extremely helpful. Our county, we are about an hour away from DC, so it's close enough to a very, large urban area. But I wouldn't say that, I do think there is support for foreign language, but I think it's pretty typical what you might find in a lot of suburban areas. I think that, you still have to you have to get people on board with the program. They have to see the benefits, and they have, not just for the students, but for the whole picture. So I think really having clear communication with the school board and with the communities about exactly what the benefits of the program are and how you're going to accomplish your goal. So not just saying, oh, we're going to have Arabic in the school, but, actually say we have certified teachers that are already ready to train. They can, to really have the plan, backed up when you're going to present your proposal.
All right, thank you. That's very informative. Let's transition now from secondary high school to higher ed. So, Dr. Dyer, tell us a little bit about the aims of your program. What need were you trying to fill, and then how you were able to impact other programming because of your STARTALK program.
Sure. Thank you, Greta, and thanks, Tim, for that presentation. That was really good stuff. As I said earlier, we have been doing STARTALK since 2007. I remember back in those days that the number of programs in the United States was relatively small, certainly compared to what we have these days with over 100 programs. But back then, I think the number was something like 25 or 30 when STARTALK first began. And we were very proud at the time to be, I remember telling people that we were the only program that first year south of the Mason-Dixon line, the only one in the South. And we started off with two primary goals for our program. I remember articulating those in the first application. And in fact, they were still there in our most recent application for a program. The two goals that we had were to bring Chinese language instruction and Chinese language learning to the state of Mississippi, in particular to bring it to places in the state that would likely not normally be able to have something like that, and to bring it to contiguous states as well. This was one of our goals. Another goal we had, though, and we were very explicit about this, was we thought that STARTALK would be an excellent way to get students interested in and potentially recruit students into our flagship program in Chinese here at the University of Mississippi. At the time, our flagship program was about 5 years old. And we saw STARTALK as an excellent complement to that, particularly because of its K-12 piece. So that's how we started. We started relatively small. I remember in that first year we had about 15 students, and we had them in one level. Over the years, as a result of, I would say, visits, site visits, and advice given to us from the site visitors, we grew from one level to three. Well, of course, we went from 1 to 2 and then later to 3. And as that happened, we were able to reach more and more students. And in fact, we were able over time to reach, to have a much broader reach than we originally intended. As of last year, our last program, I guess it isn't last year, it was this past summer, we had 30 students in our program, and they came from all over the United States. This is something that actually we became very proud of the kind of reach that our program had. Now, I say 30, we grew from about 15 students a year to 30. Those students have been very important to the University of Mississippi. I'll make a little bit of a transition here into the impact that this program has had on us. We are a university, a reasonably large state university. We have about 20,000 students here on the Oxford campus. STARTALK for us over the years has really become a part of the institution. We have been able to position STARTALK into our university structure, in fact. It is really a big part of what we do here in the summer. It has become for us an extraordinary recruiting mechanism as a university. It is well respected by the university's administration and in fact coveted. We'll talk more about this, I think, later in the panel, but this program is now part of our summer college, which is a program designed to bring high school students and even students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to our campus to provide them with residential learning. Our STARTALK program fit perfectly into this mechanism. And so over the years, that relationship has gotten stronger and stronger. I will tell you that from the beginning, STARTALK for us was run out of the Modern Languages Department. And then as years went by, we recognized this opportunity to be part of the summer program on our campus. So that's just a little bit of an insight into our goals as they were originally recognized, and where they were even last year or this summer. And we feel that those goals, as articulated initially, have held pretty fast. We look forward, even though we are in the situation we're in now with STARTALK, we look forward to the future. And I think we'll be talking about that more in just a little bit. But STARTALK will live on at this university. I can promise you that.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I just have maybe one follow-up question. In terms of the grassroots, I mean, you kind of alluded to this as, you know, STARTALK now becoming just part of the university, but I've had the opportunity to visit your program, and one of the things I really was impressed by was the initial outreach that your program went in order to attract students to your program. And can you speak just a little bit about how that began and how that has transitioned maybe into just a one of a typical summer opportunities, but it began as something very unique for your state? Sure.
So the first year, it's hard to remember this now, it seems so long ago, but the first year was 2007 for STARTALK. And as I said earlier, we have had a flagship program in Chinese here since 2003. But right from the beginning, we felt that we had an opportunity to recruit for STARTALK in various ways. And one of those was we have a program coordinator in our flagship program who traveled, who visited high schools in particular throughout the region. So we started in the very beginning talking with students in high schools about STARTALK as we were doing other things with our recruiting mechanism. And to this day, and very intensely over the last few years, when we recruit institutionally, not just for our flagship program, but I would say with what we call special programs on our campus, things like our Honors College, our Croft Institute for International Studies, things like that. Those recruiters, when they travel, they also talk about STARTALK, and they take the opportunity to let students know that they can have this extraordinary experience, which is, as I said earlier, a residential experience here in Oxford doing STARTALK. I can't think of a better way to spend July when it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity in Mississippi than to be studying Chinese at the University of Mississippi.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I would have loved to be there myself. So thank you for that. Just a really unique opportunity for juniors and seniors in your state. Okay, Tammy, we're moving to California now. We went from East Coast to West Coast. So talk to us about your initial goals for your program, and then how has the impact of STARTALK influenced what you've been able to do in your post-STARTALK programs?
Yes. Just before I get into the goals, let me just provide just a little bit of context of who we are. Unlike the two previous panelists, we're actually a community-based organization. And we have a mission of building connections between intergenerational Korean Americans and the greater community to bring cultural awareness. And we do a lot of empowerment programs, and we have social services for the greater Korean community. So pretty much what we do is very Korean, in other words. So in all facets. And prior to setting up a STARTALK program, we already had a pretty robust adult Korean language program. Which then subsequently, after growing our program on the adult side, received a designation from the Korean government as a King Sejong Institute. So just providing that level of context. With children's programs, we were debating whether or not we want to dabble in that area, because there's a lot of different weekend Korean schools at the various churches here. But I knew that we wanted something better. And if we were going to do something, it was going to be great. Because for me, growing up as a second generation Korean American, I vividly remember the trauma of going to Korean school on Saturdays and Sundays. And it was not a very fun experience. It was not a really good experience. And then subsequently, passing that on to the next generation of my son really hating it as well. And so that's, just to provide that context. And then to also add, I personally, even though we had our own Korean language program, I became familiar with STARTALK when I sent my son to a STARTALK program, a Korean heritage program at UCLA. So just to give you some perspective, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hour commute in the mornings due to Southern California traffic. So I was driving an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, sending my son to a STARTALK program. And it was probably, I know that sounds crazy, and I'm known at UCLA as the crazy STARTALK mom, who then formed a program. But it was so impactful that I knew this is what we needed to do. This is exactly where the direction was headed in terms of language learning. And it was just so amazing, so unique from my perspective, that I knew we had to have something like this. And subsequently, we had formed sort of mini STARTALK programs, or STARTALK-esque or STARTALK inspired programs. And it really got our teachers comfortable with finally applying for an actual STARTALK grant. But it took a couple years for that. And finally, in 2018, we had our first STARTALK grant. And it was completely amazing. But really, the goal for us, so now that I gave you that context, our goal was a little bit different, because our number one goal was really to preserve our language and our heritage. Most of the students that we have are what we would call third generation Korean Americans, meaning, and how we define that is that they are the grandchildren of the first immigrants that came here to the United States during the 60s and 70s and through the 1980s. And, as a result, as many of you know, the English only learning policies, that existed in the United States, all throughout, probably up until the 1980s, we have a whole generation of Korean Americans who really don't speak English at all. And then we're then subsequently passing that down, or Korean. And then we are then subsequently passing that down to our children. And so really it was in order to preserve our language and our identity, first and foremost. And then, but close to that, and I would say you've got goal 1A and 1B probably, is to build a pipeline of teachers and to build that capacity. Because again, how do you have a dynamic program when everyone has been taught to teach Korean a certain way? Which is, again, that led to the trauma of kids not wanting to take Korean, and then they drop out and they fight with their parents, and then the parents give up, and then the cycle starts all over again. And then I would say the goal number 2 was to make Korean fun, to bring back the fun in learning Korean, or learning any foreign language for that matter. And so that's what we really wanted to do. And it was very interesting because as I alluded to earlier in my introduction, we specifically had a middle school program because there were a lot of Korean schools locally, again, affiliated with churches, and weekend, and mostly volunteers and really good-hearted people teaching, but not really either certified teachers or teachers who could teach children basically what's essentially kind of a foreign language, and using those methods. And many teachers who came to America might have been teachers in Korea, and then they came to America and thought they could be Korean language teachers. And that's where the big disconnect was. And so which then causes students to lose interest, and then they drop out by middle school, because by middle school, they have a personality, they're able to say no, they're able to fight with their parents and talk back. I mean, that's the honest truth with middle school. They begin to have their own identity, and that's where you see a huge drop off, and that's where we wanted to pick it up. And so that's why we specifically chose middle school. We specifically chose heritage. And as a result, our first year in 2018, no experience required. We had over 300 people on our interest list within 48 hours. And so the demand was huge, and we learned a lot. We learned first come, first serve probably isn't the best approach. And we were limited at the time to, I believe our first year was about 25 students. And then we subsequently moved it up from there. But, an all-day immersive program for 4 weeks. It was, again, it was a really great experience. And I think we've learned a lot over the years. We've enriched, we've improved. And I would say, I would be remiss to say, I'm pretty confident that we have, one of the top programs in the United States for Korean teaching and education. So much so where, the Korean government has taken interest in what we're doing because we've applied these STARTALK methods to even our adult program. So the STARTALK methods, it does not end at just STARTALK, and it does not end with just children, but you can take that same approach. And we have all of our teachers learn STARTALK methods. And it is, in terms of impact, prior to STARTALK, there were no dual immersion programs in Korean here in our entire county of Orange County, California, which has the second largest Korean population in the entire United States, and probably only about 4 high school Korean programs. And what we've been able to do as a result is to help the concern about starting a Korean program is because 2 things: lack of curriculum and lack of teachers. And you can reverse that order. And that is the barrier for actually having a Korean program. But because of STARTALK, we had curriculum. We had things to share with the first dual immersion program to start, which was in Anaheim, that started at kindergarten. And that was amazing. And then we had another district, Fullerton, also exploring dual immersion, which again goes back to curriculum, which goes back to teachers. And they decided, because we had the teaching staff, and our lead instructor ended up going to the district to build up their Korean program, and has built Korean at 4 different middle schools as they're preparing for the dual immersion program. And so that's the real impact of STARTALK. And then we've also, with our program, we do have a high school here locally that has Korean. So we've been more of a feeder program for the public school system. And again, it goes back to, Timothy alluded to this, where, districts are concerned, are you going to have enough students to even, be interested? And, how do you get them to invest? But we've been able to feed into that program through our STARTALK. And we've been able to continue even throughout the year at our public schools, where we provide extra cultural lessons, where we go in and we drop into the school to provide, calligraphy, Korean calligraphy, or Korean crafts, or to talk about Squid Games, and and so we've had a great time doing that. So I would really credit STARTALK for helping us build that capacity.
Excellent. What a great story. What a great story. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. And so as we end, take a moment and reflect. Y'all have all given us things to think about. If you were to give advice, if a program came to you and say, for instance, Tammy, what is the thing I should start with? What is the most important thing to focus on first? What would you tell these programs? What advice would you give them? Y'all are in different settings. You have different structures around you. So let's just pause, and I'll just open this up to whoever wants to go first. and take a minute or two. What advice would you give other programs wishing to expand if they were similar to yours? Who'd like to start us off?
Yeah, so I would say strip away everything you've ever learned about teaching foreign languages, because at least for Korean,
Yeah.
Like strip away everything that you've ever learned, and really look at STARTALK principles, and not just understanding the principles from a theoretical standpoint, but really how do you put those principles into practice? Look at the STARTALK resources and look to see how classes are actually taught, because everyone, that the number one crippling thing is for teachers, especially of Korean and probably most languages, is the book. Following the book, the chapters of the book, the lesson plans, and all the grammar points of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to just reimagine learning that's not book centric.
I really like the way you put that. They're crippled by the book. That's a really great phrase. Okay, gentlemen. Tim?
A little bit when I was speaking, and I think it's so important to reiterate, is to try to put yourself in the shoes of the administration and the people who are going to be approving these programs. I think that a lot of times, teachers, we see the world through one way because we focus on certain things in our lives, and we don't necessarily see the perspective of the administration and what they have to deal with, and how they really have a very large picture they have to look at when it comes to the school. So really try to think about how you can, when you have this idea for implementing your language into the school system, you have to make sure it can fit in with how everything is going to work with the other needs of your county. And also, as much, we're all here, we all love STARTALK. Once your language becomes a school, you will no longer necessarily be a STARTALK program. You're going to have to now your new language is going to, your new program has to mesh with the other culture of the school around you. So like I said, I think these are things that I've learned, and as I have worked with these programs, is just really making sure how you can, your goals can align with the school district's goals. Mm-hmm. And that's why I mentioned things like getting teachers that are certified in multiple subjects, getting interest started in middle school, because you're going to be competing with other languages in high school. So you have to get students. Many students, they choose Spanish or French because it's all they know. They don't know much about Arabic or Korean or Chinese. Mm-hmm. If you can have little after-school programs in middle school, maybe start those first. Even though your dream is to have a 4-year high school program, maybe it's more important to start an after-school middle school program, because then you're getting the interest when the kids go to the high school. Then you can also go to the school board and say, look, I already have 30 kids that are taking Arabic after school, and they all want to take Arabic. Or I already have 20 middle school kids taking Arabic online. They want to have a regular class when they go into high school next year. So these little things, I just think they're so important when you're trying to get your language into the school year.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you so much, Tim. Okay, Dr. Dyer.
Well, this is great because I feel like I get to have the last word. While I'm talking, I don't know, Thomas, is there any way that right at the end of what I have to say, I could share a screen? If there is, I'd love to be able to do that. Whether I can or not. For me, the biggest piece of advice I could give to, let's say, university programs would be that STARTALK programs or programs like them can absolutely be a fabric of your institution. You can work to make it that way, and the benefits to having STARTALK students or students in programs like that on your campus is extraordinary. Don't forget about recruiting. But I don't know, am I able to do that, Thomas?
Yes, there is, Thomas says. So.
Okay. I'd like to show everybody how STARTALK lives on, and I want to also say at the very end of this that a huge thanks to those who have been part of STARTALK over the years. Mm-hmm. Betsy, Greta, Nicole, and many, many others. It's been an extraordinary thing. Those 4 programs that were on the state of Mississippi mm-hmm. earlier, 3 of those are still alive and well, including the largest Chinese high school program in the state, which is in Holly Springs, Mississippi, about 30 miles from here, which is a very underprivileged school district.
Okay,
and
Don, I'm sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. Don, you should see a share button in the middle
Okay,
of
I
the
see
screen
it,
at the
yeah.
bottom. Go ahead, feel free.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
All right.
Are we getting it?
I'm not getting the one I want. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to do StreamYard. This will be interesting because you'll be able to see the same thing maybe, but I have another window I want to open for you, and let's see if
Okay.
this works.
All right.
Can everybody see that?
There we go. Thomas is pulling it. There we go. Thank you. Yep, we see it.
Okay, so next summer we're ready to go with our own program, which is expanding from Chinese to from Chinese to Chinese and Arabic. So StarTalk will live on. We'll have a residential program very much like StarTalk next summer here in Oxford.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I appreciate all of you taking your time during this busy conference day and sharing your expertise, your learning, your experiences, your enthusiasm, and your passion with our audience. This is what StarTalk is all about. What makes us a family is the joint passion we have for languages and how we love our students. And so thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your conference, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.